The fluorescent lights in the innovation hall were still humming when I saw my name disappear from the future I had built. I'm Marcia Bloom, 46 years old, and I had just watched 14 years of my life get handed to a man who probably thought smart fabric meant a blazer with Wi-Fi. On the 40-foot screen behind him, the words glowed in clean white letters, "Next We've invented and led by Ethan Vale." For a moment, nobody breathed. Or maybe that was just me. Ethan Vale, the CEO's 29-year-old nephew, stood under the spotlight with one hand in his pocket, smiling like he had personally woven the laws of physics during lunch. Investors applauded, board members nodded, hospital executives leaned forward, military buyers took notes, and there I was, standing near the side entrance like a ghost at my own funeral. If you want to know how Ethan stole my invention in front of everyone, and how he lost everything just 72 hours later, please like this video, and tell me where are you listening from, and what time is it there now? Now, let me show you what NextWeave really was. NextWeave was not a fashion product. It was not some luxury hoodie with a charging port. It was a medical-grade smart textile system that could monitor heart rhythm, detect muscle trauma, regulate body temperature, and send emergency health data in real time. Hospitals wanted it for critical patients. The military wanted it for soldiers in extreme conditions. Professional sports teams wanted it to prevent career-ending injuries. The patent portfolio was valued at $2.1 billion, and Ethan Vale had just introduced it as his vision. That was adorable. In the same way a raccoon sitting in a courtroom might be adorable if it were wearing a judge's robe. After the presentation, Ethan led me into a glass conference room overlooking the lab where I had spent most of my adult life. He did not even bother to sit down. "Effective today," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "All intellectual property related to NextWeave is being consolidated under Aurelia corporate ownership. Marcia, your consulting role has been terminated. We appreciate your contributions." Contributions! Like I had brought muffins to a meeting instead of inventing the only textile interface in the country approved for both hospital trials and defense testing. I unclipped my badge and placed it on the table. "Ethan," I asked, "did legal walk you through the Core Loom Protocol?" His smile flickered for half a second. "Our attorneys reviewed everything." "Marcia, the transition is clean." I nodded. "Then you've got nothing to worry about." At the door, I looked back at him and smiled. "Enjoy the fabric," I said, "but watch the seams. When they split fast." He did not understand what I meant. That was fine. He had 72 hours to learn. You know, this story is fictional, created with the help of AI to make it more dramatic and meaningful. But by the end, there will be lessons that feel very real about truth. Credit. So, let's continue. First, you need to know where NextWeave came from. It did not begin in a boardroom with catered coffee and men saying disruption like it was a religion. It began in my mother's sewing room in Dayton, Ohio, where I learned that fabric could carry memory, pressure, warmth, and dignity. My mother stitched uniforms for nurses. I studied the way cloth touched exhausted bodies, and I wondered why it could not do more than cover them. Years later, as a biomedical materials engineer, I turned that question into 14 years of work. NextWeave became a breathable smart textile that could read heart rhythm, track oxygen shifts, detect muscle strain, regulate body temperature, and alert doctors before a patient crashed. Soldiers could wear it in desert heat. Athletes could use it to prevent injuries. Then there was Ethan Vale, a man whose greatest scientific achievement was keeping his hair perfect under studio lights. Before Aurelia, he had burned through 3 startups' luxury dog meals, digital sneakers, and an AI meditation coach that apparently needed therapy. Naturally, his uncle made him Chief Innovation Officer. He started small. He changed Bloom sensor architecture to Vale Adaptive Framework. He removed my initials from testing logs. He told investors he had guided the textile vision. Guided. Of course, from the safest possible distance from the lab. That night, a young engineer named Priya slipped me an audio file. Ethan's voice was clear. Let Marcia finish the military version, then cut her out. My hands went cold, but steady. After Priya's recording ended, I did not scream. I did not throw my phone. Call Ethan. Or march back to Aurelia like some tragic woman in a courtroom drama. I drove home, locked my door, and went into the spare bedroom I had turned into a private lab. It was nothing like Lab 6. No glass walls, no investor tours, no motivational posters about innovation printed by people who feared original thought. Just 2 workbenches, 3 aging monitors, sealed notebooks, and 1 offline authentication terminal hidden behind a cabinet of fabric samples. That terminal was connected to the one thing Ethan had never heard of, because it was buried where men like him never looked the technical appendix. Years earlier, when Aurelia was still a 12-person company, Dr. Lenora Hayes and I wrote the Core Loom Protocol into my original agreement. Lenora understood something simple. Smart fabric was not only thread, it was chemistry, firmware, biometric calibration, medical compliance, and federal usage approval woven together. Remove the inventor without consent, and the system should not politely cooperate. The protocol required 3 keys for any transfer of NextWeave ownership: my digital signature, my biometric verification, and confirmation from the Federal Medical Device Registry. Without all 3, the licenses would enter automatic review. After 72 hours, every commercial deployment would freeze. I opened the dashboard. The screen blinked once. Unauthorized ownership transfer filed. No biometric match. Countdown active 61 hours, 12 minutes. I leaned back and exhaled slowly. Ethan had not stolen a sweater pattern. He had triggered a regulated safety mechanism attached to hospitals, defense trials, and billion-dollar contracts. My phone buzzed. It was Nina Park from Legal. "They're announcing the full takeover tomorrow," she whispered. I looked at the timer. "Then tomorrow," I said. "They start learning how fabric comes apart." By morning, Ethan Vale had discovered the trick in corporate America: stand before a large logo. Speak slowly, and people may confuse confidence with competence. I watched the press conference from a booth in a diner 2 blocks from Aurelia headquarters. The waitress kept refilling my coffee, while CNBC showed Ethan walking to the podium like a man about to cure gravity. Behind him, silver letters flashed across a blue screen: NextWeave, owned by Aurelia Dynamics. "Today," Ethan announced, "we begin a new era in wearable intelligence. Aurelia now holds full corporate ownership of NextWeave, the most advanced smart textile platform in the world. Full ownership, a brave phrase for someone standing on a 72-hour legal trapdoor." He unveiled 3 hospital systems, 2 professional sports partnerships, and a defense pilot program projected at $4.8 billion over 5 years. The anchors purred. Analysts called him visionary. Aurelia stock jumped 26% before lunch. Apparently, the market loved stolen fabric, as long as it came with a clean font and expensive haircut. Then a reporter asked the only question: what was Marcia Bloom's role in developing NextWeave? Ethan smiled with practiced sadness, the kind executives use when burying someone alive. "Marcia made some early contributions," he said. "But true innovation is a team sport, and Aurelia is the team that brought this to the world." Early contributions: 14 years, 37 patents, 90 clinical tests, and enough failed prototypes to fill a warehouse had just been reduced to a participation ribbon. I wrapped both hands around my coffee cup and said nothing. Anger is useful, but timing is better. The countdown on my phone read 49 hours, 8 minutes. By evening, every business outlet had Ethan's face on it. Mine was missing. Of course, erasure looks cleaner in high definition. Then an email arrived. Aurelia Dynamics cordially invites Marcia Bloom to celebrate the NextWeave legacy. Legacy. How polite. They were not just stealing my work. They were preparing to bury me under it. I went to the celebration because sometimes a funeral is worth attending, especially when the corpse is still making toasts. The Halston Club smelled like money, steak, and people pretending ethics were a decorative concept. Victor Vale stood at the head of the private dining room, silver hair perfect, smile polished, one hand resting proudly on Ethan's shoulder. 30 guests surrounded them, board members, investors, lawyers, hospital buyers, and 2 defense contractors who looked allergic to uncertainty. Victor raised his glass. To family, vision, and the future of intelligent textiles. Everyone drank. I lifted my water and admired the performance. Nothing says innovation like a nephew inheriting a miracle he could not explain under oath. Ethan stood next. Neck's weave represents the best of Aurelia, he said. A bold idea guided by bold leadership. I set down my fork. Bold is one word. I said. The table softened into silence. Ethan smiled at me. Tight and shiny. Marcia. Tonight is about honoring the legacy you helped begin. Helped begin. I repeated. That is generous. Almost as generous as removing my name from the patents. A lawyer coughed into his napkin. Victor's eyes narrowed. I kept my voice calm. I just hope your team verified Core Loom before announcing those hospital and defense contracts. Medical systems and federal agencies get so dramatic when paperwork lies. Ethan laughed, but it came out thin, legal-handled compliance. Wonderful, I said. Then the ownership verification should pass without trouble, before he could answer. A server approached and whispered in his ear. Ethan's face changed by inches. Smile first, color second, confidence last. He stepped into the hallway with his phone. Through the glass. I watched him grip the wall while listening. When he returned, his hands shook around his wine glass. Routine registry issue, he said. Victor did not blink. As I left, he caught my arm. Marcia, what did you do? I smiled. Nothing. Victor, I only built a system that politely refuses to lie. By midnight. Ethan stopped smiling and started doing what rich amateurs do best, demanding reality change its terms. Nina sent me updates from inside Aurelia's legal war room. 12 attorneys, 3 compliance consultants, and 1 frightened patent clerk were locked around a conference table, staring at the Core Loom language like it had been written in ancient fire. Can we override it? Ethan snapped. According to Nina, the senior attorney answered, not without Dr. Bloom's biometric confirmation. Then sue her. For what? For sabotage. She hasn't touched our systems. For extortion. She hasn't asked for anything. I admired the panic. Almost. Ethan had stolen a regulated medical textile, announced it on television, sold it to hospitals and defense buyers, and now wanted to file a complaint because the stolen thing came with instructions. By dawn, his second mistake arrived. Aurelia's communications office released a statement calling me a disgruntled former consultant attempting to delay progress after a leadership transition. Consultant again. They really loved that word. It made theft sound administrative. I did not answer reporters. I did not post online. I made tea, opened my archive, and sent 3 encrypted packets, 1 to the Federal Medical Device Registry, 1 to the hospital procurement attorneys, and 1 to the Defense Contracting Office. Each packet contained my original agreement. Core Loom Appendix C9 lab notebooks, patent filings, biometric authorization logs, and Priya's recording. Facts travel slower than lies, but they carry sharper teeth. By noon, the first hospital system suspended its next weave rollout. At 2:15, the second demanded independent verification. At 4 o'clock, the defense pilot entered compliance hold. By dinner, a sports league partner postponed its launch event pending clarification of ownership rights, which is corporate language for we smell a lawsuit. Ethan called me 19 times, then 23, then 31. I let every call ring. At 8:42 p.m., 1 text arrived. You don't understand. If I go down, I'll drag you with me. I looked at the timer. 9 hours remaining. I whispered to the empty room. Then bring good shoes. If you think I've gone too far in revealing the truth, please comment you're wrong. But if you believe I'm just defending what I've built, please write I support you. I need to know that I'm not facing this fight entirely alone. At 5:59 a.m., my apartment was completely still, except for the quiet pulse of the authentication terminal on my desk. The countdown reached 10 seconds. I did not touch the keyboard. I did not press a dramatic red button. That would have been satisfying. Sure, but unnecessary. Ethan had already done the work by filing a false ownership transfer without my signature, my biometric scan, or federal confirmation. At exactly 6 a.m., the Core Loom Protocol completed verification. Failed. One word appeared on the screen. License suspension initiated. Across the country. NextWeave began unraveling in the most elegant way possible legally. In North Carolina, Aurelia's production line froze while 180,000 military-grade smart uniforms sat half-finished on automated racks. In Boston, a hospital network canceled its patient monitoring rollout before the morning shift even changed. In Los Angeles, a professional sports league suspended a $260 million performance wear launch. By 6:34, the defense pilot program entered immediate compliance lockdown. No explosions, no sirens, just emails, halted contracts, and executives discovering that stealing regulated technology is less fun when regulators read. At 7:10, Aurelia stock dropped 48%. At 7:26, trading was halted. By 8 o'clock, federal investigators had opened reviews into intellectual property fraud, false medical device claims, and securities misrepresentation. CNBC changed its headline 3 times in 20 minutes. My favorite was Simple Aurelia's smart fabric empire comes apart at the seams. Then Victor called. Marcia, he said, breathing hard. You need to turn it back on. I can't. You mean you won't? No, I said. I mean, I can't. The system belongs to the verified patent structure. It responded to a fraudulent filing. His voice sharpened. 3,000 employees could lose their jobs. I looked out at the pale morning light. I thought about them for 14 years. Victor, did they think about me yesterday? Silence. Finally, I said. I didn't shut down NextWeave. I only refused to authenticate a lie. And for once, the lie had to stand completely alone in public. By noon, Ethan Vale had traded his victory suit for a crisis interview tie, which was the same tie, only worn by a man sweating through his foundation. I watched from my kitchen while he sat across from an anchor and tried to smile without looking like someone hearing footsteps behind him. This is a misunderstanding, he said. Some outdated paperwork created confusion around ownership. Outdated paperwork. That was adorable. My original contract had just stopped a $4.8 billion rollout. But sure, blame the stationery. The anchor leaned forward. Did you personally approve removing Dr. Marcia Bloom from the NextWeave patent chain? Ethan opened his mouth. Before he could answer, the anchor touched her earpiece. Her expression changed. We're receiving an internal email sent from your account to CEO Victor Vale, she said. Then she read it aloud. Once Marcia finishes the military weave, remove her from the patent chain. The public will follow the company story. For the first time since I had met him, Ethan had no vocabulary. The clip went everywhere within minutes. By 1:30, Aurelia's board suspended him. By 2, Victor released a statement claiming Ethan had acted beyond his authority. By 2:17, Ethan's attorney responded that Victor had direct knowledge and approval of all strategic intellectual property decisions. Family, vision, and the future. Now with subpoenas. Then the engineers started speaking. Priya posted that I had led every NextWeave breakthrough. Nina confirmed the Core Loom filings were valid. Former lab technicians uploaded photos of prototypes with my initials stitched into the sensor lining. Quiet people, afraid of losing jobs, finally found their voices when the palace caught fire. I did not celebrate. I just sat still, letting the truth enter rooms where my name had been erased. At 6:11 p.m., my phone rang. It was Meridian Health, Aurelia's largest hospital client. We don't need Aurelia, their director said. We need the person who built NextWeave. I closed my eyes. Finally, someone had called the right number. 3 days after the interview, Aurelia remembered I existed, not as a former consultant, not as early technical support. Suddenly, I was Dr. Marcia Bloom again, inventor, visionary, indispensable asset. Funny how titles return when stock prices vanish. Victor requested mediation at a law office. He arrived thinner, older, and surrounded by attorneys who looked like they had not slept since the truth developed. Excellent timing. "We can fix this," he said. "Come back as CTO, 12% equity, full public apology. Your name on the research wing." I almost admired the offer. It was amazing how generous thieves became after the lock changed. "You do not want me back," I said. "You want my fingerprints on your cleanup." Victor's jaw tightened. "Aurelia employs 3,000 people and used them as a shield after using me as a ladder." He leaned forward. "Be practical, Marcia." I was practical for 14 years. I built protection into the work because I knew someday someone like you would call theft a transition. That ended the meeting. 2 weeks later, I filed incorporation papers for Bloomtech's Biosystems. The patents moved with me because they had always belonged with the verified inventor. Not the loudest surname in the room. Priya joined first, then Nina, then 27 engineers, testers, and compliance specialists who had been ignored, underpaid, or called too cautious by Ethan's innovation circus. My rule was simple: if you built it, your name stayed on it. Within 6 months, Meridian Health signed a 10-year clinical partnership. The Veterans Rehabilitation Network followed. A national sports medicine group licensed our injury detection weave. Together, the first contracts were valued at $3.6 billion. And this time, every agreement listed the real technical team. Meanwhile, Ethan received a federal contracting ban from executive roles involving regulated technology. Victor resigned before the board could remove him, which was considerate of him, like closing the door after burning down the house. Aurelia sold 2 divisions, then its glass headquarters. People asked why I did not save them. I did. I saved the invention from the company that tried to bury it. 8 months later, I stood inside Bloomtech's Biosystems, facing a room full of doctors, firefighters, veterans, athletes, and engineers whose names were finally printed on the program. There was no giant portrait of me, no nephew in a designer suit pretending thread obeyed ambition. Just a simple display, NextWeave Bloom Series, built by the team that built it. The new fabric was better than the version Aurelia tried to steal in broad daylight. It could detect early signs of stroke in recovering patients, warn firefighters before heat exhaustion became deadly, help veterans retrain damaged muscles, and alert athletes before a hidden strain became a torn season. That was what I had wanted from the beginning. Not applause, not a glass tower. Proof that fabric could protect people before systems failed them. After the demonstration, a reporter asked, "Dr. Bloom, do you consider this revenge?" I looked at the first responders wearing the trial vests, then at Priya, Nina, and the engineers who had refused to let the work die. "No," I said. "Revenge is making them hurt. Justice is stopping them from lying again." That line made headlines. Fine. For once, they spelled my name correctly. In my new office, I hung the first NextWeave prototype behind glass. The stitching was uneven, the sensors bulky. The lining faded from years of testing. Inside the collar, written in tiny black thread, were the words I had sewn there before any investor cared. Built by Marcia Bloom. They stole the fabric, but they never understood the thread. And in the end, one loose thread was enough to completely unravel their entire empire. Looking back, I learned that losing something unfairly can sometimes reveal how strong your foundation really is. My story was never only about a stolen invention. It was about truth, dignity, and refusing to let someone else erase the work that cost me years of my life. Through everything that happened, I learned 3 valuable lessons. First, always protect what you build, because talent without protection can be taken by louder people. Second, never confuse silence with weakness. Sometimes the calmest person in the room is simply waiting for the truth to arrive. Third, real justice is not about destroying others. It is about making sure lies can no longer survive. Which lesson left the deepest impression on you? If this story spoke to you, I hope you will subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to remember their own value. Your voice makes this community stronger. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next story.
Welcome to Boardroom Revenge Stories, a channel focused on workplace conflict, corporate betrayal, power struggles, and quiet justice. Our stories follow a structured workflow to deliver a consistent, immersive experience. We start by analyzing real discussions on Reddit, Facebook, Quora, and blogs. Next, we craft original scripts using AI tools like ChatGPT. We then use 11 Labs to transform text into high-quality voice and edit everything in CapCut for a smooth, cinematic finish. Thumbnails are designed with Canva, and every video is carefully reviewed before release. These stories go beyond entertainment, revealing how power truly works and how justice quietly unfolds.